What's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I'm kind of excited here, and I think it's time that on the channel we start covering some of the characters themselves and what they bring to the team and why you should possibly decide to focus in on some of them, especially in the early game. Now, I see there's not much content out there that really covers what the individual girls can do and how they fit into a team and what the actual races do. So as an effort to just put some information out there, how I use characters, or at least how I see them from my perspective, and also potentially start a conversation in the comments. You know, I'm really eager to hear about what you think about some of the characters and how they're doing for you on your team. Pretty excited because this is going to be looking at things from the perspective of the Beastfolk and who we have to start off here on the channel first. It's going to be Eve, who lets you hold the power of the sun in your hands. So let's go ahead and find out what she does. Let's get started.
I wanna be immortal, like a god in the sky. I wanna be a silk flower.
Alright, so here she is, Eve. Have her on our front menu here first. She was definitely one of the very first girls that caught my eye, and you know, just the gigantic greatsword is hard to miss. For folks that are starting off on the game, you know, with new servers coming out on a weekly basis, she is the first girl that you will see in the exclusive rerun banner. You know, when you're looking at your airdrop menu, you'll have your first encounter for what you have to make at least 100 draws and reach a certain level before you can see the limited or rerun banners. At the moment, time of the recording, we have Hecate with the Rose Waltz, but even though you might have Hecate coming up here, if you are on a newer server, you're going to be seeing Eve come up here first, and then there is a specific order for the first 35 days for you to see that. But Eve comes up first, and you know, a common question that comes up in the community is, who is Eve? What does she do? How do the Beastfolk even play? And should I draw for Eve? Well, if you are looking to dive into the Beastfolk race, Eve is certainly one of those first characters that you will definitely want to look into, because she helps that race tick. And I had to learn it one way. You know, there's plenty of good DPS characters within the Beastfolk. We'll be diving onto them here in the channel, so definitely stay tuned. Subscribe if you want to follow us around this series. But let's go ahead. We want to look at Eve's abilities and try to piece everything together. So heading over to the girls, you will see that I am focused on the Beastfolk, and even though that's the case, I will cover some of the other races. But we are looking at Eve in her full glory. You can see that I have what I like to think is a maxed out Eve to the best of my ability at my current level. You know, not having really reached level 120 yet to max out most of my stats, but you know, doing the best that I can here. One important thing that I want to note about the Beastfolk: when you're building them and reading through their abilities, you're going to notice that their basic attacks barely do anything, and that's not a problem. Because basic attacks in the Beastfolk race basically do nothing at all. We never want to be using our basic attacks. And if the enemy is forcing us to do basic attacks, we're in trouble. The skill set, the specialty of the Beastfolk race here is to spam active skills. So we are getting special abilities from the skill set, replenishing energy, because energy is what we need to perform these full skills and ignore having to do the basic attacks. So a basic attack helps us build up the energy, but if you're a Beastfolk player, you're trying to make sure that the girls on your team have full energy at the beginning and full energy again every time it goes to be their turn to swing again. This skill set makes them really good in PvE modes versus bosses, where you basically have 100% uptime on your active skills that usually will do more damage. There is not much skills in the Beastfolk race to let you repeat attacks. but one of the starter girls, Cheryl, likes to do that. It's not common, but that's why every time we go to make a swing with a special skill on one of our Beastfolk girls, we want to make sure that we are doing the most damage that we can with each swing. So in the Beastfolk race, Eve is one of those characters that likes to put a lot of power into each hit that she's doing per round, and she gets us the closest to what a burst might be in the early game. So starting off here first, you see her basic attack is only 105% of her attack to a single enemy, and that will just look like her taking a quick little swing of her sword at the enemy. And even though you can stack a pretty good amount of attack, it's not really much to write home about. So let's go straight to Heaven Splitter, her active skill. Dealing damage equal to 146% of attack to adjacent enemies. What this means is that if Eve is in the middle of your lineup, that means position 2 or position 5, she's going to hit enemies in the shape of a T or a plus sign. So that's your enemies rank 1, 2, and 3, as well as the back middle position 5. If you put her on the corners of your lineup, she's only going to be able to hit the corners of the enemy. So that means the front 2 girls, usually position 1 and 2, or position 2 and 3, and then the girl directly behind them on the back line in the same corner. It does deal them a good amount of attack percentage, so that boost is pretty good, and it consumes all of her energy. To what I can note here, it is up to the maximum of 10, which is what also triggers a little extra skill bonus of up to 15% for anything above 4. So that's your energy 5 and up to energy 10, and that's 6 extra energy, each of them giving you 15%. Basically a 90% skill damage boost. Eve loves to build that skill damage boost up. And as long as she's hitting 2 or more targets, she will give herself extra energy. So you can kind of see the problem we're seeing here. She loves to spam high energy direct damage hits. So you want to make sure she's as topped up as possible. The Beastfolk race has other characters that support this playstyle, like Shimasuki, that lets you just continue to refill the energy on your characters. So energy is what the characters need to spam the active skill. And yes, you need at least 4 to use that active skill. If you have more than 4, the character will just take 4 energy and spam the skill and be ready to go again with another skill in the next turn. But there are teams out there like Evolved that have special abilities to remove energy from your girl. Having an ability built in that lets you restore your energy is really good for that middle to late game within the rounds, to be able to keep your skills blasting and keep your uptime going. But sometimes there's single bosses or single enemies where this will not come into play, so you're going to need help from Marks or from other girls in the team to keep restoring your energy. The skill boost is also really good, but let's go ahead and look at her talents, because this all starts coming together. When you make Eve a 2-star, she's going to get 25% skill damage and also a damage boost. So there you go, that active skill, getting that extra modifier of a 10% damage boost is really helpful, as well as your basic HP attack and defense boosts. Very good. I really like this. When you make her a 3rd-star though, most characters in the game all have the same sort of 3-star boost here, which just increases the energy that they start the match out with by +1, and also their HP attack and defense by the 12%. Really good just to increase the stats on her, but all the characters have it. We'll just go ahead and move on to the next talent. When you make her a 4-star, when she defeats a target, she will just go ahead and restore some energy to herself. So again, really good. She has abilities built in that just increases her own energy, so she can go ahead and continue to spam another great sword attack with the special skill on the enemy team. additional energy that it's consumed. So again, you get your extra skill damage, but now here you are also ignoring the enemy's defense by a certain amount. So every extra energy that's over the 4 that you need to spend for the skill, so anything from 5 to 10, gives you 6 times 8 chances here to ignore 8% of that defense. Really good for squeezing in more damage on the enemy target, with an additional talent. So when we start getting to the Oath, because again, I have her maxed here. We're looking at this from the lens of being maxed. I'll go into the Oath skills as well to show you what you unlock. The damage that is excessive over defeating a target, 60% of that is dealt as indirect damage to the enemy. So it's a good little segue for us. Indirect damage versus direct damage. Beastfolk characters are all about connecting with the enemy girl that they're targeting and just dealing raw damage that uses stats like crit damage, skill damage, damage boost, ignore defense, all of that good stuff. So you need to be able to hit your target to be able to deal this damage. The counters to that is if an enemy team or enemy girl has a lot of dodge to where you could miss with your attack, and then also high defense, high damage reduction, high crit resistance, high crit damage resistance, all those sorts of stats. We're playing the game as honest as we can when we are Beastfolks, just making sure that we are directly connecting a hit into the enemy characters to reduce their health and ultimately defeat them. So indirect damage sort of gets around a lot of those modifiers, just being raw stats depending on the percentage that just deals damage through indirect sources. There are methods to reduce the incoming damage, or also invincible shields that can prevent some of that. So the problem with Beastfolks is if they were only honestly fighting with direct damage, then they ultimately would suffer. And in the later stages of the game, when more girls have more defensive stats, more damage reduction, more defense, more shields being spammed, the direct damage starts to fall off if you don't keep up with increasing the damage that you can do with your output. So that's definitely a risk and something to keep an eye out for in the late game, but also why Beastfolk are really strong in the early and in the middle game as well, especially in PvE modes. So keep that in mind, because Eve here, right off the bat, gives you the ability to do some indirect damage once you get her to her 4-star. Finally here, her 5-star. When she's using a skill, she basically has the crush mark built in. 80% chance to remove invincible shields. So Chloe, Hyacinth, some of the PvE mobs, they can start the battle with these yellow or red invincible shields. Only Mephis is immune to having it broken, but Eve has a crush mark built in, which if you give her a crush mark, that means just more chances for her to go ahead and break shields. Hers is a pretty high one. A high chance is 80% to just flatly remove the shields of whoever she targets. I like that. The other marks, you could have a 50% chance or a 100% chance, but the more girls you're targeting, the chance is reduced. And there's like Mark 2s, Mark 3s, Mark 4s to do that, but that just means that you can have Eve be the first of your DPS characters to try and take a swing, so that if the enemy team has shields, Eve crushes them, does her damage, and then your next DPS girl can now swing freely into the enemy girls that no longer have their shields up. Whereas if you did it in reverse, you're going to take a swing, hit the invincible shield, and just bounce right off. So keep that in mind when you're structuring the order of your team. Having Eve usually swing before your other DPS if you're running 2 on the same team. But that's not all she does here. The very first skill that she casts in the battle just completely is free. not spending any energy at all. So you could be starting her with some of the energy marks or some other characters that give her some energy. She can go ahead and swing, especially when you're in the early game and she might only have like 6 or 7 energy to start the game off with. She'll go ahead and swing, save all that energy, and then her second swing might reach the full 10, and now there she's going to town straight up, just slamming the enemy with her 10 energy, her extra skill damage, her extra damage boost, any marks that you have, and just going right off. This is great, and it lets her just do that extra burst damage and gives her viability in PvP to just be able to slam the enemy team twice, hit them in that plus sign T-shaped attack, and then move on to the next round. And as you notice, each of the talents here are increasing their attack, HP, and defense by a certain amount. Yeah, so far building the picture together, you know, as a Beastfolk player, you want energy and you want stats that increase metrics for direct damage. So let's go ahead and move to a weapon, and then I can break down a little bit more about what the individual stats mean. So her weapon is actually pretty critical. The energy greatsword, when you are leveling up to different traits, let me just make sure I clicked on this right. All right, there we go. Are giving you a bunch of extra stats, so you want to have this leveled up as best you can. I have mine at the level 100 and collected multiple copies of it too. So here you can see how I have the stats ranked up. As I level it up and have the plus 11, you know, you're gonna reach different breaking points. You know, having the weapon first, even with no copies, will be rank 0. Reaching rank 3 means you've collected at least 4 of the copies. So now you're at the rank 3, and then rank 7, I believe, is if you collected 8 of the copy. No, that would be 9, because some of them need 2 copies at a time to level up. But as you go through, it just goes to show a little bit more of how Eve increases her own damage if the enemy is healthy. So that's a lot of burst damage happening very early. You know now that she's not wasting her energy after the first swing. So if the enemy girls are healthy and their HP is above 50%, she starts off by increasing her damage by 10%, which then goes up to 20% at rank 3, and then goes up to 30% at rank 7. So an extra 30% damage boost is big. To just, you know, definitely make sure that you're hitting your target, that their shields are cracked, and that you are directly now going through the calculations of the enemy's defense, damage reduction, crit resistance, and other good stuff, versus your damage boost, crit damage, and extra modifiers in your favor. So Eve is usually getting damage through. When you level up the weapon, you're going to get some additional buffs, which, you know, means boosted crit rate, an additional 10% damage boost, well, which most of these are flat increases for most girls, additional energy twice, HP, you know, just for your own health pool, and some damage reduction in the PvP mode, which just helps with her survivability. But when you get to the Oath system, which we'll cover here in a moment, unlocking the first Oath will unlock an extra weapon for the abilities of all girls in the game. So as long as you have their exclusive weapon, they're basically going to get an additional talent. Which this one means whenever the target's HP is above 50%, Eve also gets some additional crit rate. So that extra modifier makes sure that her damage is always going through. So we like our stats. We like what we're seeing. You know, I'm at the level 100. I think this is a good point, and you know, resources at this point of the game are a little difficult to come by, so I continue to enhance it. This menu, where if you don't have copies of the weapon, lets you continue to add copies until you get to level 11, and some folks might be getting to that level 70, level 75, where you unlock the Emblem. This just gives you some additional stats that boost everyone on the team. They are very small stats, so I just want to put a quick disclaimer here. Don't focus on this if you've maxed the weapon out and try to spend more tickets to get your emblem ranked up. This is really an end game feature and not recommended to sacrifice your tickets or vouchers to try and level this up at the expense of the other girls on your team. You want to make sure that your team is prepped first. This is only as like an afterthought, or you accidentally get an extra weapon, then you can go ahead and do it. And then equipment. This is a critical aspect of the game, one that I think is deserving of its own video, and I think I will make that here soon. But I'll definitely cover it here so that we have a reference to it. Medals and relics. Your DPS girls that want to be doing damage are going to want offensive relics. There's different levels, and for many players, we're going to be starting out with the green, blue, and purple relics, for levels 1, 2, and 3. Once you start getting to levels 4 and 5, you're going to get the, effectively SSR and UR relics that give you better stats. There are 5 slots that, as you're leveling up your weapon to rank 11, start opening up. The first 3 are universal. So that lets you put in a feather, or a crystal, or a flower. Very flexible slots, and depending on the metal that you're using, you can go ahead and just switch them up as however you like. But slots 4 and slots 5 are specific and fixed. Only a pendant can go in slot 4, and only a garland can go in slot 5. And these are usually defensive relics, which is fine, just for the stats of your girl to be increased for defense or dodge, any of those good things. But as a DPS character, there are particular metals that we want to have that increase our damage. So here, for example, my recommendation to everyone is that if you have the opportunity to get a medal of accumulation, that's this great sword medal that, coincidentally has Eve's weapon on the picture, with 3 feathers requirements, is immediately the best one that you can get. There is another one for penetration, and that one does usually come up in shops that if you're spending is very good for characters that love direct damage, but it's not as easy to get as the accumulation medal. And we're all usually focused on PvE anyways, so this is the one that you want. It gives you damage boost, attack boost, and also an ability that increases your attack percentage by 6% at 4-star, and stackable up to 5 times. So by round 5, you've maxed this out. You have an extra basically 30% of your attack. So it is, basically compounding here, which is a massive boost for your girls in PvE. And if you're extending the battle in PvP, you're getting a damage boost overall. It's just really good. Both this one and the penetration medal have 3 feather requirements, and these usually have stats that are good for doing damage. So here I have a couple of them. Crit rate, crit damage, attack boosts, flat attack boosts, and more attack boosts, good stuff. Though I do have a dodge and an HP stat on these too. And as you level these up, you can go ahead and unlock additional stats on them. So you unlock them for every 5, level 5, level 10, level 15, level 20. So I go ahead and unlock 4 extra stats for my relic. I got HP, attack, crit damage, and hit rate on this feather. More hit, more attack and defense, just a mixture. And then these kind of get a little silly. I am adding a ton of hit rate and crit rate wherever I can. You kind of have to, they are random when you unlock them, but there are some resources that you can use in the game. I'll make it a part of the video, so definitely stay tuned for that. That cover how to flip the stats on these relics, and how to generate them. So you're going to see ultimately here that I'm adding a ton of hit, because again, Eve has to be able to connect her attack with the enemy girl. If she dodges it, that's basically a wasted round for Eve, and we don't want to have that. So again, that was just basically a summary. We'll go into more detail on a future video. But for everyone, if you have the Tsukuyami live stream event, you are able to unlock one of these medals. The 4-star at the minimum of this greatsword is going to do so good for your team and help you push a lot of content with your main DPS. Even if you only have one DPS, it could be Cheryl, it could be Pluton, Nymph, Louise, one of the core DPS girls. This medal is going to be really good, but for Eve, it's a must-have. So let's go ahead and step back out. We covered up the leveling. I'm only at level 93, so I increase the level of my girl up to the level I have, but you're going to get your crit, HP, defense, attack boosts as you make your way over. Awakening, this is where you need your copies of the girl to level her up. You need 1 to become 2-star, 2 to become 3-star, 3 total to become 4-star, and then 480 fragments to max her out at 5-star. So that's 1 copy total, and then an extra 10 to get her maxed out. So 11 total copies when you're drawing for her. So make sure you think about that. When you're starting your account, you get gems, you get rainbow tickets. If you immediately start drawing for Eve, that's usually going to immediately set you on the path of being a Beastfolk enjoyer. I went that path, I love it, but if you're looking to do evolved, mechanic, or even new human, you're probably going to want to save those tickets and not draw for Eve. The important thing to know about the Beastfolk playstyle is that they love to be partnered up with other Beastfolk. So once you're on the path of Eve, you are really committing to being a Beastfolk player and enjoying the high damage and high direct skills that the Beastfolk team offers. So definitely think about that when you're pulling. So here we are, we have our shards up. This lets us segue a little bit into the Oath system, which when you're using your Starlight materials, which is this triangle, sphere, and also this nice geometric shape, as well as 6 more copies of your girl, because you need 1 for infinite power, 2 for Doom's Glory, and 3 for small yet great. You're going to unlock additional stats for your girl and increase the abilities of her talents. This is major. So first, we are adding HP boost, and that's what you get for going through 1 through 9. And then an additional ability, which is on the weapon, where her crit increases by 30% if she's hitting a very healthy target over 50%. Big stuff. You also get a picture in the gallery. Next, for Doom's Glory, this unlocks you attack boosts, which is huge for DPS girls. You definitely want this as soon as possible after you've maxed out your girl. 1 through 9. And also increases your skill damage by 25% and your damage boost by 10%. So big. A damage boost, always big on any girl that is a DPS. And now this one, usually your final level of URing a girl and completing her small yet great requires 3 copies to do. It's going to give you damage reduction for the survivability of your character from 1 through 9. But on Eve, it gives you the 60% excess damage being dealt to the enemy carries over. So yeah, one girl, like even if they're not in the T formation that you're usually hitting, you'll go ahead and slap one girl on the corner of the enemy formation, defeat her, and all the excess damage will then carry on to the other girl who thought she was safe in the other corner, because Eve's attack is a little awkward. It's again hitting like a T or a plus sign. So if the girls are split up because you finally took out the middle 3, this is a good way for her to get some extra indirect damage onto the enemy. And the cool thing about the last level of small yet great in the Oath system is that you get an extra little art piece. So you can see, Eve is actually built up. She's got her little horn sticking out, and her sword is also buffed up. A little bird partner, which is pretty cool. But yeah, all characters just increase their effectiveness in battle when you get to their Oath system. So very good stuff there. Her gift type is going to be this little gift box. Looks like a little Jack in the Box. Let's go in the gift shop real quick. It's the Mimic chest. Very good. Don't let Freerin see that. And Bond. You know, as you're pulling other characters, you know, usually for the same race, you can increase the stat of your main girl if you have drawn other girls. And just as long as they're in your roster and you've summoned them, you're going to get the little boost. So, you know, Cheryl, very popular as another Beastfolk DPS, is going to give you a 2% attack boost. Shimasuki, very popular support girl, will give you some HP. And then the other girls will give you similar boosts in that manner. Yeah, so I'll cover this window in a future video as well, but you know, you want to have her affection increase for you to use the oath system. Important to note is that Eve does not have a girl that she combos with, and this is usually the case with most limited characters. Only the core characters that you start off with really have a girl to do a combo with, but you don't have to focus on those. Just a small damage increase usually. Marks. So I've put together these marks here on Eve. There's other combos that I like to use, but this is probably going to be the general one, just so I can cover and why this video might go a little bit longer than my other ones. So Beastfolk, we know they like direct damage, and we know that they like to put as much power into each hit that they do. So how can we make the most of it with marks? For those tuning in for the first time, marks are little flexible extra abilities that you can add to your girl to make her stronger. I like to think of them as basically extra talents, and you're gonna get an additional 8 once you max out the girl. You have to level up to unlock some of these slots. This one over here unlocks if you oath her, so usually you'll have like 1 to 3 spots for marks at the very beginning, so you know, you want to use those with the marks that you think are going to help her the best. But as you level up and just over time playing the game, you're going to reach level 40, 50, 60, 70, and that'll unlock you the remainder of your slots. When you go, I believe level 80 unlocks all of them for you, and you have to oath the girl. So crit damage, hit, and attack HP. You know, basic stats are just good for you to have on your girl. You know, this is just going to give her a modifier. I have a UR attack HP mark. You know, just giving her a flat big increase. Crit, so we're seeing the modifiers on the direct damage. Crit damage, so that once she connects, we see a positive modifier in the damage that Eve is doing. Hit, you know, we're really boosting up. You know, I want one girl on my team to have ridiculous amount of hit percentage, so that if an enemy tries to stack dodge and thinks that they can try to avoid our direct damage, Eve is going to say no to that. She's going to show them the true power of the sun. Ultra is one of those marks that you can draw for on the side. You might pull it out of a crate, or you can also purchase if you've leveled up to a certain amount. You know, there's some packages out there that have it. This just gives you a flat skill damage boost. Eve already boosts her skill damage because of her own built-in abilities, but a mark just adds additional more. And then we get to specialty marks like Crush. So Eve has a built-in 80% of just removing the shield off of the enemy she's hitting. But this mark is what I meant. An extra 100% chance to eliminate the enemy's invincible shields. So if you really want to get the shields off as Eve is hitting somebody, and usually you do, this is even better. Unfortunately, it's not like Eve's where you always get the chance for her targets. This one is a reduced chance from the 100 if you're targeting multiple characters. So Eve at most will only ever hit 4 at a time. So this 100% chance is being reduced by that modifier. But if she's hitting one girl and she has a shield on, it'll be a 100% chance that it's removed. And then lastly, stimulation. So when you're on a new server and you have the chance to get the bomb mark, it's very similar to this one. The bomb mark increases the damage for every energy that's used. Stimulation does a similar thing. So as long as the energy is over 7, Eve with this mark is going to get 20% skill damage boost that can stack. It's only for 2 turns, so you know it'll be a 20% one turn, and then an additional 20% on turn 2, and then you just keep refreshing. This mark is limited for the team, only up to 3, but for Beastfolks, it's an incredible mark. Yes, our girls are usually, with all the support that we have in place for them, and even Eve, who has built-in abilities to keep her energy topped up, is going to be enjoying that extra skill damage. So just tons and tons of skill damage. So you can tell, you know, it's scary. You're going to see Eve just go ahead and one-shot a girl, and that is something we like to see as DPS Beastfolk mains. Finally, something for defense. You know, there are marks that are yellow that just, you know, reduce the damage that a girl is taking. You know, you want to use those in the early game, but Heart Link is one of those SSR marks that increases their damage reduction here by a flat 12%, and then any non-lethal damage distributed equally amongst Eve, the wearer, and 3 allies with the highest current HP percentage. You know, just a good way for your character to stay alive longer, not have to be risk getting sniped out by single target girls like Jewel, or girls that hitting columns like Louise, that can just quickly be positioned across from Eve and then just try to pick her out of your lineup. The Heart Link mark is one of the better generic defense marks out there that just make sure that the rest of the team absorbs some of the damage and Eve doesn't eat it all by herself. Because as a DPS girl, she's going to have more attack marks. She's usually going to be vulnerable and not have as much defense. So that's where your tanks and other girls come together, but it's a lot to cover in just one video, so we really need to split this up, and we're going long as it is. Gear. I put the gloves on Berserk because as a new player or someone starting out, the gloves should be the first piece of resonance gear that you try to build. It's just better all around. I'll go ahead and dive into it. I have this one maxed out because I figured it would be the best way for me to start building up. The SR gear, for the most part, only increase your defensive stats. So here we have a bunch of HP boosts. And if you go into laboratory and take a look, you'll see why I built the gloves first. So crit rate is what we're starting off with. Attack boosts, crit damage, and more crit rate. So it's out of the SR resonance gears, the one that gives you the best bang for your buck, because these drop a little bit rarer than most, but you do need the resonance gear once you hit the level to unlock these, because it's just another additional layer of boosts for your girl. You also can make a shield out of the damage you're doing, but you know, I want to do my damage, so I don't really need the shield at the moment. You know, your Cheryl, your Eve, you know, multiple girls can wear it. So here, this carrier line will tell you how many girls can carry the gloves. So basically your whole team can start off with the gloves, and the number of girls that can carry it increases the higher you level it up. So there will also be another video covering this topic and trying to shed some light on how this mechanic works. But HP defense boost, and you'll see that most of them at the SR level just have that. You want to buy one of those, it's fine. And SSR, they drop a little bit less, much less than the SR one, so those are built much slowly. I've managed to build up 2 pieces of SR, so the other ones are catching up, but you know, these are the ones that I would recommend getting first, and it's going to be the gloves. You can consider the glasses for your defensive girls afterwards, and also to help with control. So that's the kitted out Eve and how she likes to perform battle. Run right in there and follow the anthem of the Beastfolk with building up powerful hits and going straight into the enemy, you know, just trying to knock out multiples at a time. So we can go ahead and, you know, just do a quick demo. You know, you can see Eve in battle, and I think the best way to probably showcase that would be through the Beastfolk Tower. So let's go ahead and just see what she's like in the Tilted Temple. I believe I ran out of attempts. That's sad. All right. Let me try to readjust. We could probably go into the arena. What do we think? Do a quick showcase. blanking out here at the moment. I think we just go against the base boss. I haven't even collected these marks. All right, let's go ahead and fight. It's Jewel. We only have 3 characters. I have Eve right in the front. We'll put Hero and Yoru in the front here because pretty cool. Yeah, let's go ahead. Get a decent amount of damage. Have the pets go ahead and activate. Eve being in the front means that she'll hit all 3. Whereas if she were sitting in any of the corners, she would only be able to hit 2 of them because she targets the middle girl and then hits up. Let's go. She has 9. And then you go and see her big numbers as she does her damage. And the rest of the Beastfolk girls attack. Go ahead and slow this down a little bit. Good animations, but you sort of got to see here how Eve just goes up and gives her strike. And then comes back down, hitting all 3 girls in the front. So if there's bosses, like solo bosses, or ones that have anywhere from 4 or less, you'll just see Eve do a bunch more damage. I also have Puff here, which is like a bit of a step up. She might release later. Her banner already came around. Really good DPS for the mid to late game. And then Cheryl, who, spoiler, might have a video coming up soon for her part. So we'll go ahead and skip, kind of see the comparison. Puff carries most of my damage at my level at the moment. And unfortunately, there are interactions that I need to cover with how she plays around with Eve and Cheryl. That makes their numbers kind of look small. But that's Puff talk. So we'll go ahead and collect some of these rewards. And go ahead from there. So you're seeing things from my perspective. Again, I love the Beastfolk playstyle. I think when I was reading my or going through the girl abilities, seeing that the Beastfolk love to build up energy every round and spam their active skills also every round, that this was the type of team that I wanted to use for just laying a lot of damage onto bosses, mobs, solo characters. The unfortunate part is when you try to look at player versus player arena modes, the other factions do the aspects of PvP better than the Beastfolk. In the early game, while they're still trying to build up those combos, you might see that your Beastfolk are just taking them out easy, but as the game advances, you're going to notice that PvP becomes a bit more difficult because the enemy is more defensively stacked. They can burst you better, they can resist you better, they can control you better. So arena just becomes something that you have to kind of make secondary as you try to level up through fighting the bosses and getting rewards in the PvE modes, the Beastfolk player. Later on, characters like Puff, characters like Odil, characters like Helena help shore up a lot of defenses and make your team more well-rounded. And you know, that's what I have. So I have a lot to speak towards the Beastfolk. And I really love their playstyle and what they bring to the experience of the Goddess of Fate game. So I have a lot of positive things to say on that front, and you know, just hope folks look at the Beastfolk with a plan, because the other problem is that the Beastfolk love to be on a team with other Beastfolk so that they synergize very well and their combos go off more reliably. It's a little more difficult to mix them. Only a few characters really make sense out because they are keyword locked to just really supporting other Beastfolk. Odil is an exception. If you see the Odil banner come around, you probably definitely want on your team no matter which race you're playing. But Eve, Helena, Puff, like they really like to be on the Beastfolk team. Cheryl's universal, so yeah. Give me a little bit of time before I get the Cheryl video out. If anyone is running Cheryl, she is a universal Beastfolk and is just good on any team as a DPS and good to start the game out. But Eve, if you're pulling her and you see her banner on one of those new servers, just know that she is kind of shoehorning you into the Beastfolk playstyle. You get to become a Beastfolk enjoyer. And you know, that's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, you want to definitely stay focused on a specific race. The experience of building up your first team within the one race is just going to help you push further in the content. And I can't say enough about how positive that experience is as a player who's focused on one faction. But can mix. Topic for another video though. What are your thoughts though? Let me know what you think about Eve, what you think about the Beastfolk. If there's any skill sets around in particular that I should be probably covering first in an order, I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. And I appreciate you sticking around for this longer video than most that we've done for. But you know, with these character dives, I think you want to know the most information as possible. And if there's any questions, feel free to drop them down. Let's start a conversation in the comments. And I think that's all that I have for now for Eve. It's getting pretty hot in here. She brought the sun, she brought the pain down. I think we're ready to move on to the next one. Thanks everyone for sticking by, and happy gacha.